folks, and welcome to this week's show. And as you can see, back by popular demand, we've got Peter and
Hello.
we've got Jeremy.
Hey,
And as you can see by our backdrops, of course, we're going to be discussing and ranking the albums of The Doors, and quite a range, I feel, is the phrase I'm going to use. So this should be very interesting. But before we start any of all of that, as usual, just a reminder, folks, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. You know, we're trying to get the numbers up. We've got some really high hitting shows, but we don't have the numbers in terms of subscribers. So please subscribe. Just click the button. It takes 30 seconds. Right, enough of that waffle. We're going to go into our usual opening here, folks, in terms of how we got into the band. Okay, and so this should be interesting. I'm looking forward to listening to this. So, Peter, I'm going to start with you. How did you get into the Doors?
Dave Vanian.
All right, yeah, of course.
Uh, uh, that's that's my memory of it. Anyway, it was just, it's just one of those names that you heard certain people mention, and I always connect Roxy music with Siouxsie and Severin. Talking about Roxy, and for some reason, I connect the Doors with Dave Vanian mentioning in an interview or something like that. It probably was just like I'd heard the name several times, and then when finally Dave Vanian said it, I was like, okay, I need to check out the Doors. So that would have been like 86.
Yeah, because they did a version of LA Woman then, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They did a live. They did LA Woman, and yeah, and then I had listened to the first album by then, and so LA Woman was the second album that I bought. And the first album, just that was it. I was away. I'm like, definitely, you know, yeah, straight off, fall in love,
Good.
instant, didn't take long.
Yeah, good stuff. How about yourself, Jeremy?
I think it started with the radio. I got an AM radio when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I was just cranking that thing all the time. I was in my room, and the Doors made hits. I heard Light My Fire. I heard Love Me Two Times, Hello, I Love You. Probably a lot of, several songs. I always liked them. I thought they were good. And then when I started buying records, there was a vibe. This is probably about 78, 79. These were among the foundational records of the 60s. I don't think my brother had any of them. Maybe he had the first one because he was 6 years older than me. He still is, in fact. And uh, so I just started buying the records. I bought the first album, loved it. And I think I went through pretty much chronologically. Most of them, I think it's about half and half, which ones I bought new and which ones I bought used. But I just really got into them. And there was a relationship between them and the Velvet Underground and some of the dark subject matter. And that was interfacing nicely with things like Joy Division and Susie and the Banshees and the whole post-punk thing.
Yeah,
So
you
that,
hear all the influences on all those bands, can't you?
yeah, I just like the dark, minor key stuff. And also I grew up in a Kurt Weill household. My dad was a huge fan of the Three Penny Opera, and hearing them do Kurt Weill, that made a connection for me as well. So, yeah, I just thought they were fantastic, and got all their albums. Bought the box set on CD as a gift for my wife because she loves them too, and yeah, just great stuff.
Excellent. Well, my first encounter with them was, I think it was the early 80s, and they used to have they used to show these live concerts on TV that were recorded in like places like Belgium or whatever. But also they did The Doors Are Open, and I think it was for Granada TV, and they repeated it in the early
Yeah.
80s about 10:30 in the morning or something weird like that. And I remember watching it. And I thought it was excellent. I thought the guitar playing was fantastic. The band were great, and they are excellent musicians. May I just put that out there as well? They're a fantastic troupe of musicians, and I really enjoyed it. And it was odd. I don't profess to be the biggest fan in the world. I put that out there, but I really got massively into LA Woman, and I thought it was a fantastic album, and that was always my go-to album. So just recently again, I've started listening to some of the albums again, and doing this show has been lovely because there's a couple that have really flipped it for me, and I thought, whoa,
Hmm.
they're really, really good albums. So my choice might be a little bit different to the sort of norm, I suspect. Although the bottom three, I suspect, won't be. So we're going to do all nine albums, including the American what's it called?
An
Prayer.
American Prayer.
American Prayer as well, right at the end, which was released obviously posthumously, and it was just some sort of talking and poetry thing with Jim Morrison. So we're going to do all of that. But before we do that, let's do the ranking. So on the screen, folks, you'll see our ranking chart here. 5 stars means it's a masterpiece. 4.5 classic. 4 excellent. 3.5 very good. 3 good. 2.5's a fair album. Two's weak. 1.5 very poor. One awful. Zero point 0.5 don't bother. We have had a couple of 0.45s. I'm thinking sort of acid eaters springing to mind. Um, and I'm thinking of The Madness springing to mind. Who knows what will happen today? We shall see. So, Peter, it's your turn to kick off the 9 albums of the Doors. So the six with Jim Morrison, the 2 posthumously, and then the one where they've sort of tagged him in with some poetry and talking at the end. So,
Mm.
what have you got in number 9?
Number 9 is Full Circle.
Right?
And yeah, I mean, starts with Get Up and Dance, to which nobody does. The end. Like, I mean, so awful. Every track on it is just comically bad. It Slipped My Mind is the only track that didn't make me want to take a screwdriver to my ears. But even that is just like, no. It's I have nothing else to really say about it. These are accomplished musicians. These are really strong musicians. We know that.
And they've
I
got
didn't
Jerry
think,
Sheff and players like that on it as well, haven't they? Some top guys.
yeah, I mean, these are, yeah, how it's ended up so bad. Like, obviously, the poetry wasn't going to be there, etc. But I just did not expect it to be as god awful. And yeah, that's it. It's a 0 from
Yeah,
me.
right. Well, we've gone 0, folks. We've never had a 0 before. But who knows what else may happen? We've got 0. All right, Jeremy, what have you?
That's fair. Well, I put at number 9 Other Voices, which was the second album they released, or was that the first one? Now I'm
It was the
confused.
first one.
Actually, it was the first one. And the fact that Jim Morrison was barely, cold in the ground
Yeah,
and
yeah.
recording this album. I mean, that's a sign of how bad the music business can be to people because they were getting, the whip cracked by Elektra Records saying we need, and they actually got something in the charts on this record, which is just insane. But when I listened to it, I just thought it's an almost complete failure. The vocals are terrible,
Terrible.
Yes.
but there's not one indelible song. And I don't understand because Robbie Krieger seemed to be able to write a song in his sleep that could either be a hit or something interesting. And there's nothing like that. I don't know what happened to his acuity as a songwriter. Minor Winds, I wrote Ships with Sails has some textures and grooves that I thought were kind of interesting, points in potential new direction, which kind of just makes it sadder because Morrison wasn't there to guide them and put the context of the vocals on that. Tightrope Ride does have a great Krieger guitar solo that's worth hearing if you like Krieger. But man, it's just terrible. I gave it half a star. And I understand, look, I feel bad for them. I mean, what a terrible thing to happen to a tight, brotherhood. But this was not the way to respond.
Yeah, there we go. We're not doing well here, folks, at the minute, and I'm afraid it's going to remain so. My number 9, we've all gone with different ones though, because I've got American Prayer. Amazingly, this was recommended for the Grammys. I mean, I am absolutely flummoxed. It just shows you how bad the Grammys must be, then basically. I don't normally swear very often on this show, but I've just written, "Oh my God, this is shit." That's my statement that I've actually written on my phone here. It's got a little section of Peace Frog thrown in. No idea why. It doesn't really sort of make any sense. I put this album up there with William Shatner albums or the Telly Savalas albums. It's pretentious crap. It's absolutely rubbish. And I have to say, this is probably the worst album I've ever heard. And I've given it 0 stars. It's absolutely god awful. Even Jim Morrison can't redeem it, and I feel sorry for him because they've obviously just sort of nicked everything that they've had of him and slapped him on some album, trying to make him sound like some poet. And I just think it's wrong. The guy's dead, and I just thought awful, awful, nothing positive whatsoever to see it. So 0 stars. American Prayer, 1978. It's even got a bloody disco bass line on it at some point, which doesn't work. But nah, nothing redeemable. Peter, what have you got at number eight?
Number eight, Other Voices. You know, just yeah, as Jeremy said, is there's just nothing in there. It is just awful from start to finish. The only reason I put it above Full Circle is the last two tracks, Wandering Musician and Hang On to Your Life. Again, not entirely, didn't cause me in absolute agony, whereas the rest did. I mean, it's not worthy of the name The Doors. And again, these are not weak musicians. They've written some amazing stuff. How could it go so wrong? Other than, of course, drugs. I mean, I guess they just lost a friend and took a load of drugs and thought they'd make an album, or were pushed to make an album. I don't know. Just oh no, 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 no. Half a, half a star.
Half a
Half a
star,
star.
right? Okay, interesting. Yeah. Jeremy, what have you got at number eight?
Full Circle. And it is, I gave it half a star as well. Verdilac is a kind of cool song, and including Charles Lloyd, who is a great musician. I thought it was an interesting thing for them to work off of. There was some potential there. There's minor moments, some inspiration, but crap overall is what I wrote. And part of it is that the vocals. Both Krieger and Manzarek could do a demo vocal. Like they could put a song over and you could say, oh, yeah, I think this could be a good song if somebody actually sang it. Or, Manzarek did some stuff in concert. Manzarek, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He did some stuff in concert and it was, give Jim a break. And that was fine. Like Build Me a Woman on the live album. But you're not going to want to listen to a whole album of those guys singing. No way. It's just it's just sad. The cover's kind of cool though. Yeah,
So how many stars, Jeremy?
I gave that half a star as well. I mean,
Right.
I can't give it zero. That's too.
Yeah. I must
But I might as well. I don't know. A half a star for both those.
I think I've gone generous here because my number eight is Full Circle and I've gone 1 star. So so it's just abysmal.
High praise.
It is indeed. And I mean, the one thing I'll put this out there beforehand. If they were going to carry on, one, they should have changed the name, a bit like Joy Division did.
Hmm.
And they could have got a different type of singer in. So, for example, available singers at the time, you had Joe Cocker or someone like that might have worked perfectly with the band. I mean, who else have I got written down? Or they could have went like down the route of getting a female singer like Elkie Brooks or someone like that who had a bit of rock about them as well. Something a little bit different, but do something a bit, something a little bit out there, but it still be
Yeah.
able to incorporate some of the songs. But
Or they
because
could have gone and hung around in the clubs and found somebody undiscovered
yeah, exactly, because
that
it
would
has
have brought
worked.
something new.
I mean, if you look at bands like AC/DC, I mean, Brian Johnson was relatively unknown. I know he was a Geordie, but wasn't
It
that
was
well.
another band. Yeah.
And others, you've had obviously other breakthroughs, Ultravox and bands like that, have worked. Genesis, of course, inside the band. But so it is possible. But yeah, as voices, they're just awful. I mean, Get Up and Dance, I've written Funky Groove, would have worked with Morrison, funnily enough, I think. And Billy and Souls, I just wrote, would have worked with a better singer. Yeah, Verdiac, not bad. But the rest is awful. I mean, oh my God. Good Rockin' is one. I've written Good Rockin'. This is just like a Spinal Tap type of sort of title.
How do you screw up Roy Brown? I mean, it's kind of like these guys have been playing the blues for 10 years at that point.
I mean, Peking in New York, Queen. Oh my
Oh
God,
god.
that is so bad.
Ugh.
Um, I don't know. Good God, it's just awful. Yeah, I mean, it slipped my mind. Actually, sounds like the Doors, bizarrely. But Oh, yeah. Terry Reid's the other guy I was thinking of as a singer. But oh
Oh
my God.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But oh my God, just rubbish. Rubbish. So yeah, one star from me. So I'm feeling I've been a bit generous now, Peter. So what have you got in at number seven?
I've got an American Prayer, and purely because it's at least got Jim on it, although it is waffling some of the outtakes of his own poetry. Um, and but he does sing a bit on Bird of Prey. But yeah, it's just it's an absolute mess, really, and just pointless. Yeah, you know, the poetry doesn't work with the music, and I mean, I know maybe it would be okay as a spoken word thing. I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, this was all near the end, and how broken was he? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's just so ill advised. And you know, you're right. It is kind of like I wish I'd never heard it. Put it that way. I wish I'd never heard it.
Wow.
So, um, I'm giving it half a star, just maybe for the little bit of Bird of Prey, and I don't know, just yeah. If you haven't heard it, don't listen to it. Just don't. You love Jim. Just don't. It's not going to help you in any way, shape, or form.
I
Done.
think I think I heard it about 40 years ago, and obviously I'd blocked it out in my mind. So when I went to listen to it again this week, oh dear. Anyway,
I actually never heard it, and it's also my number seven, if we're ready to
yeah,
go.
yeah, ready to go.
Yeah.
I had never heard it. I used to see it in the crates, in the store, and I did end up with a weird single that I bought at a water damage sale that had Ghost Song on it and the live version of Roadhouse Blues. So that was really all I heard of it, and until 2 weeks ago or whenever I started this project. I have to say that I'm a little kinder to it than you guys. First of all, it started out from a place of, Jim Morrison had recorded these poems with the idea of doing an album with Lalo Schifrin. He had apparently contacted him right before he left for Paris. So we don't know how it would have gone with some kind of orchestral accompaniment. It could have been something interesting. But I also think they did take that raw material and make a sincere attempt to make something out of it. I think that, Manzarek put things in these kind of suites, awake, to come of age, to put Morrison's life in structure. And I also thought that some of the music was kind of cool, sort of a jazz funk thing that took off from LA Woman and sounded more like the Doors than the other two albums, posthumous albums. I doubt I would ever listen to it again, for a long, long time. But I thought it was a kind of sincere effort to just put a stop, put a end of the road, like that thing at the end of the train tracks. This is it for the Doors. Of course, then they went on tour with other singers and did all that kind of stuff, and because of the movie, yada yada. But I do think that it's more noble than Full Circle and Other Voices, but still not great. I gave it 2.5 stars.
Oh my God. Whoa.
Oh, shocked.
Wow. Wow, I'm stunned. Right, well, there we go. There's the first shock. I've just drank me Guinness. I'm going to have to get another one in a second. Right. Other drinks are available, folks. If anybody would like to sponsor us, I'd be more than welcome to try. Anyway, on that note, wow. My number seven is Other Voices. I've actually written there are three very good songs on this. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that they're actually executed well, but there are three songs on there that I like. I mean, In the Eye of the Sun, I really like it. I think it's a terrific song with terrible singing, and he's trying to sound like Jim Morrison, so it's quite weird. Um, and as I say, I've got written Joe Cocker or Terry Reid here in brackets. That would have really worked, I think, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, again, variety's the spice of life. I quite liked it. Um, and Ships with Sails has got like a Santana feel, and I quite liked it. Again, I said just Shane Morrison wasn't singing, but after that, it's just awful. I mean, Tightrope Ride, Throwaway, Down the Form, terrible. Terrible singing, some silly noises in it as well, which I didn't quite understand. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm horny, I'm stoned. Really?
Oh,
The song
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
as bad as it as the title.
You just don't want to hear that from them.
No, Wandering Musician, again, we're back into Spinal Tap type of territory. And Hang
Yeah.
On to Your Life, possibly the most inappropriate title for a song for where somebody they've just lost a member of the band. It's just so bad. You're thinking, who advised them to come out with that title?
Oh,
Just like, wow, it's just incredible. I like the cover. As you rightly say, the cover's almost, oh, it's almost a bit like the Springsteen one for Born to Run. And it's also got this sort of 70s cop show look to it. So I actually love the cover.
yeah,
Uh,
it's a great photo.
it's a great photo. But my God, terrible album. But I've
Little
given
tight.
it 1.5 stars.
They should not have called that the Doors. Yeah, no, it's
No,
just.
absolutely not. Even if they
And the
just
fact that
ended it
they've
like the doors are
reissued these
open,
things.
like the doors are open or something like that, then you'd have said, all right, okay, it's a different offshoot, or something different. But terrible. Anyway, we're down to the proper six now, folks. I'm sure everybody
good.
else has probably got the same albums in different orders. Right, what have you got at number six then, Peter?
Okay, I think I wonder how this is going to play out actually, with because surely, like for me, they're pretty similar now. We're into safe territory, and I know that I'm about to put in sixth place one that I've heard other people say is their favorite. So my number six is the Soft Parade, and um, I've really enjoyed listening to it for this show because it actually reminded me how much I do like it. I often dismiss it um, purely because I don't particularly like Tell All the People, but Running Blue, I can't. It's probably the only song of the Doors that I really just hit skip, like yeah, you know. Um, and and also, but then there's Touch Me, which I absolutely love that song,
Great song.
but I don't think it doesn't like the strings on it feel quite overblown and camp to me. And I'm fine with overblown and camp, but it doesn't it's quite an incongruous song, but I still absolutely one of the first Door songs I really fell in love with. Um Also the title track is like I love their long rambling songs. But for me, of their long rambling songs, it's not actually that long, but the Soft Parade itself is kind of the weakest. And there's a bit where they like double up his vocals and stuff that I don't like. So look, I do like love this album. And it's really only Running Blue that I don't like on it, and bits of Soft Parade. Yeah, it's just it doesn't. I don't know, it just doesn't work as a whole, and but it's still 4.5 stars from
Oh,
me.
wow, we're that high already? Oh my God. Right, okay. All right, all
Yeah,
right.
we've gone from one extreme to the other
Yeah,
quite quickly.
yeah, okay. Jeremy, what have you Jeremy, what have you
I
got
too
in?
have the Soft Parade
Yeah.
at number
Okay.
six. I actually only give it 3.5 stars because of those unsatisfying parts of it. Running Blue is an abomination. It's the worst song they ever recorded with Jim Morrison. It's absolutely terrible. And when I was doing this project, I noted that they actually included that on Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine, which was a double album sort of compilation. Why would they put that song on there? I mean, that song should have been left off this album. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible. And it's supposed to be a tribute to Otis Redding.
Yeah,
What?
it's bizarre, isn't it?
You're doing a bluegrass
Uh,
song as a tribute to Otis Redding? Like it makes no sense in anything. And they were really fracturing when they were making this record. Part of the reason almost all the credits are Krieger and Morrison separately is because Morrison was like, well, if you're going to make me sing these lyrics, I don't want my name on it. And for things like Tell All the People and Touch Me, he sang them and I think he did a great job, but
I
he
think it's
was a
the one
little bit.
album where they're all set. They are literally separate, isn't it? Because all the tracks
There's
are
only one track,
the Doors,
Do
aren't
It,
they?
is Morrison Krieger together.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good song. There's so many good songs on here, though. I actually like Tell All the People. I think there is something that's a little bit kind of like, oh, you want to know what the 60s is all about? And it's got that little bit of an edge because Jim Morrison was not quite connected to the subject matter of the lyrics. And that I think gives it a cool edge. Touch Me is absolutely fantastic. What a great idea. I was trying to figure out if anybody's ever covered that song. Like, did Elvis ever do it? Or a soul singer? It really should be taken to all different kinds of places. I like Shaman's Blues, although, you do start to get into like a little bit of where the Doors, and this is Doors music, where they're not really pushing themselves that much on some of those songs. Do It and Easy Ride are pretty meh, and I think they're overproduced because they're trying to make up for the fact that they're B grade songs from them. Wild Child is fantastic. Wishful Sinful is also great. And I absolutely love the Soft Parade, the title track. There's parts in there, people complained when this record came out because they were like, oh, our avant-garde band has now gone pop. But there's something in the Soft Parade that's actually so ahead of its time because they're like taking textures from Muzak and advertising, television music, which is something Steely Dan would play with much later on. But nobody was doing that in, 1968. It just really showed their omnivorous ears in 1969 when this came out. But I will say that if you really want to hear the Soft Parade done right, you have to listen to the PBS live performance, which you can find on the box set. It might be on YouTube as well. It's a little bit, it's about 10 minutes longer, so they stretch it out. I mean, not 10 minutes longer, it's 10 minutes. So it's like 2 minutes longer. So it feels a little more relaxed, the transitions. And that's when you realize, holy cow, this is a great composition. And they do so many things in there that make no sense on an intellectual level, but are like instinctual. There's the transitions and the changes in tone and texture. I think it's absolutely amazing and a super underrated thing from their catalog. But still, I have to give it 3.5 stars. Running Blue, I shouldn't have to run over to the record to lift the needle off. And then there's a couple other weak tracks, but I do love it. It's a great album.
Right. Well, we've got a hat trick because my number six is the Soft Parade as well. And same as you. I mean, I love Tell All the People. I think it's a great song. Really, really like it. Touch Me is almost like an Elvis stroke Tom Jones type of song.
Yeah.
It really is. I used to cover it when I first started playing music with my old mate Neil. We used to do Touch Me, It's great. I absolutely love it. I'm going to probably learn it again, do it in the pubs. Love it. Shaman Blues, all right. I've just written okay. Do It again, Easy Rider, not much. Very Elvis, sort of country blues. Wild Child again, bit stodgy. I've written. Running Blues, okay. I quite liked it, funnily enough. Wishful, Sinful, decent, and I hate the Soft Parade. Absolutely hate it. Um, Too long, does nothing for me. I've just written awful, pretentious, and I've given it 2.5 stars. So there's quite a disparity in terms of where we're all at, folks.
Mhm.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before
I'm,
we go
I'm a
on to
little
the next
surprised by
one,
that, but I guess, if you don't like the Soft Parade,
yeah,
I
it's a
get
big
it.
chunk of the album.
That's going to definitely take some stars off of there.
Yeah.
I'm just looking to see who covered Touch Me because it's such a classic song.
Clinic.
And the Letterman did a version of it in 1970. I got to check that out. Hugo Montenegro, that was probably an instrumental. These are early versions of it.
Clinic
But
did a
none
version.
of the
Who
big
did?
male vocalists did a version of it, which I find maybe they were just like, he's done it. We can't do it any better
I
than
could
that. But
imagine
I could
Shirley
actually
Bassey
hear
covering it,
Elvis.
you know.
What's
That
that?
I could imagine Shirley Bassey covering it, you know.
Yeah, Shirley Bassey, somebody, or Elvis in Vegas when he had, two sets of backup singers and strings, and it would have been killer.
I'm gonna be right, folks. So after that, we're gonna go straight into number five. Now, Peter, what have you got in at number five?
I've got Waiting for the Sun.
Oh,
Um, this is, I love every single track on it. I put it in at number five um, because of We Could Be So Good Together is a bit weak for me. Um, and also, it does feel slightly shambolic. Um, I think If We Could Be So Good Together had been on the first side, but just pairing it with Yes, the River Knows really throws me off. It
Mhm.
doesn't seem to sort of flow. Um, I'm glad that they edited down the Celebration of the Lizard into Not to Touch the Earth because that's one of my favorite Doors songs. And I've heard the Celebration of the Lizard, the live thing. It's like, yeah, that works as a live. Like, if I'd seen them, I would have been mad into that. But like, I've heard the recorded version, and it, well, I don't know if they actually ever finished it, but it's just anyway. Not to Touch the Earth came from that, so hooray for that. Um, it also contains, at the end, 5 to 1, which is one of the greatest lyrics of all time,
Mhm.
and one of the greatest songs of all time. It is such a strong, wonderful, fantastic album. I say it's nothing really on here that I don't like, except for maybe We Could Be So Good Together a little bit. But yeah, 4.5 stars.
yeah, great. Right, we're still there. We're still there. We've not reached five yet, but we're right up too close to it there, Peter. Jeremy, what have you got next?
I am also there with Waiting for the Sun. This is actually an original pressing. It's really cool. It's got the center pole gatefold with
Lovely.
the entire celebration lyrics on the inner flap because they couldn't nail it in the studio, so they just put the lyrics there. And it says lyrics to a theater composition by the Doors. But I actually, it's a pretty amazing album when you think about it. And they were in such a high pressure situation because the first two albums, most of those songs they had been working on for years before, or for a year or two in the clubs before recording anything. So they had this great portfolio of songs, but then they come up against album three and they have to actually start acting like professional record makers. So there was that stress. And I actually wrote a 50th anniversary appreciation of this album a few years ago. And I found something that the bassist, Doug Lubon, said. He played bass on a lot of these songs. He played bass with the Doors quite a bit and wrote a memoir about it. And he talks about working in the studio on this record. He said, the intense pressure is taking its toll. It's in their faces. The exuberant looks are gone. They are not as happy or excited. It's becoming more like a business. Get in, do the work, and go home. Now, every song on here they wrote for the album, except for one, which is Hello, I Love You, one of their best singles. And that was actually written in 65, and they had done a demo, which you can hear, I think, on one of the archival releases. It sounded kind of like a boogaloo or something. It had a Latin feel. So what happened was Jack Holtzman, producer, his son heard that demo and was like, that's a hit if you do it right. His son said that. So you should really do that for this album. And man, the arrangement they put together for that is just extraordinary. I don't think Manzarek gets enough credit for the way, because we all know he's a great soloist and does those cool jazzy solos, but the way he layered the keyboards on that is proto synth pop in a way. They're really building up a thick, dense mix, and just that drum intro also sounds 10 years ahead of its time. Boom. How did they get that sound? I have no idea. It sounds like something that Tony Visconti was doing when he was making Low or something. It's just a very cool drum sound. And it's such a tight song. What a way to open an album. And like you say, We Could Be So Good Together. Yeah, a little weak. Yes, the River Knows is a little odd. They've got they're going some slightly odd directions on here. I actually sort of wish they had nailed Celebration and got it on the record because that would have continued what they were doing on albums one and two with the long track ending the album. But they just couldn't get it all to work in the studio. We know they got it to work live. So, but the pieces are amazing. The Unknown Soldier, 5 to 1, all those things, Not to Touch the Earth, all those things were part of that. And also then, pushing Robbie Krieger's like acoustic guitar playing on Spanish Caravan. How cool is that?
Brilliant.
Like we knew he could play electric guitar, but that's some tasty playing on there. He's so good. I just feel like they marched on. They kept going. This is where, but also by keeping that pressure on like that, that's how you end up with a soft parade where everybody's fragmented and going different directions. And Jim Morrison is like drunk and wanting to quit the band just because this album tour thing is brutal. But it's a really, really good album. I think it sometimes gets a little forgotten because the first two, come out so strong, and then Soft Parade is so controversial, and people forget there was one in between. So don't forget about the Doors' third album. It really is great. I give it 4 stars. Waiting for the Sun. That's my number 5.
Okay, well, this is where I get controversial with my choice and some of my comments. My number 5, I've got The Doors, the debut album. And I've written some really good songs on it. Break On Through's excellent. Always reminds me of Captain Scarlet, bizarrely. Although, of course, I think it was before that. Good song, really great driving intro. Clearly influences the likes of the Stooges that would come a couple of years later. Excellent song, actually. One of the great opening tracks on any sort of debut album. Soul Kitchen, I've written it's okay, but garage bandy. Crystal Ship, I love. I think it's a great song. Excellent lyrics, very trippy. I like the sort of trippy aspect to it, the bluesy sort of groove to it. It's really sort of laid back. 20th Century Fox, bit cheesy. I've written here a bit like Hendrix Light is what I've written. However, Alabama song is excellent. Their interpretation of the Bertolt Brecht song's great, although I still prefer the Bowie version just because vocally Bowie sings it better. But Jim's voice is really good. It's an excellent interpretation. Clearly influenced the Bowie version, absolutely. Light My Fire, great song. Obviously a great song, absolute classic. Really great keyboards, the whole shebang, everything about it. It's brilliant. Backdoor Man, the great interpretation of the old Willie Dixon song. So nice to have a bit of blues on. And what I like about this is that it tells you from an early stage that they are also indebted to the blues, as we discover later on in their career, of course. So that's always good. I looked at you. I've written very monkeys, but that's quite a good thing, I think, in my opinion. Quite a good pop song. Take It. Yeah, again, another poppy song. End of the Night. It's got a couple of William Blake lines thrown in, so I quite like that with being an English teacher. Revolutionary. He was a revolutionary and a disruptor, wasn't he, Blake? So I can see how Morrison was into him. The End. I've just written drivel. Absolutely hate it. It's just awful. The Oedipus section in it's just self-delusional garbage, in my opinion. I'll not tell you what I've written here, but it's just rubbish. And that takes a star off the album for me. So I've given it 3 stars. I can't listen to the song. No. 3 stars. The Doors debut album. Good album. But there we have it. Overrated, but good. So there we have it. Peter, I'm assuming you think otherwise, but there we
I am mortified.
Man, I thought
I
American
love it.
Prayer
I love it. I love it. This is the fun of these things.
Well, for me, of all the songs, obviously I'm not including the last 3 albums. The End is the one I like the least. It's just doesn't do anything for me. But there we have it. And there is a prog aspect to them as a band as well, and I love a bit of prog, as people know, but not just
No,
no.
they're progressive. They're not prog rock.
No, they're progressive, yeah.
Prog rock, but they are progressive. they wanted to incorporate
Yep.
other things. Yeah.
Come on,
Well,
Peter, what have you got at
look,
number four?
Oh,
that's what
am
we're
I next?
Yes.
Sorry. You should just.
number,
Okay.
number four.
Number four. Um, Number four is Morrison Hotel. It is a perfect album. Um, Landho occasionally throws me a little bit, but oak cracking opener, the Roadhouse Blues, just fantastic. I mean, this for me is like their most bluesy album. It feels that way to me. Waiting for the Sun, I love Waiting for the Sun. Not being on Waiting for the Sun did a amazing song. Um, yeah, I just love. There's so much light and shade in this album. The way it switches between Peace Frog and Blue Sunday and Ship of Fools. It just, yeah, but it's all stitched together so seamlessly. Um, the only thing that keeps it moving up for me is that from moving up is that it doesn't have one of the epics to end the album. You know, Although in some ways you almost stitch Queen of the Highway, Indian Summer, and Maggie McGill into one Doors epic. I'm sure some geek with Garage Band could make it into a 17-minute Doors epic. Um, and also, I remember when I first got this, it blew everything else I was listening to out of the water, and it just
Mm.
stayed on such heavy rotation for me. Like I think I was just listening to it on a loop for like a month or something. And I didn't burn it out like you do. Like
Mm.
usually with those albums, like the ultimate one for me is Nevermind by Nirvana. I first heard that and I was like, round and round and round it goes, and then I was like, oh, done. Never listened to it again. This, no, 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 and I still have frenzies of playing it. Like with the other albums, I will go listen through one and then go on to the next and maybe then switch to another artist. But this album, for some reason, I switch it back to the beginning and I'll go through a couple
Mm.
of times. And yeah, it just became knitted into part of who I am, and it's 5 stars.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting to see where that is. Good choice, obviously. Jeremy, what have you got at number four?
I also
Five,
have
sorry.
Morrison Hotel.
Is it five or four?
Four.
This is
Four.
four.
Four,
Number
sorry, Jeremy. Thank you.
four, I give it 4.5 stars. It really is almost perfect. It's hard to find anything wrong with it. Like I noted the absence of an epic or even the idea of approaching something that was going to be extended is a little bit of a ding on it. I think the ambition wasn't quite there for that, but the songs are so good. Now, two of the songs, Waiting for the Sun and Indian Summer, were both old songs. Waiting for the Sun was written for that album, kind of like Houses of the Holy, where
Yeah, or
they
Queen's Sheer
recorded
Heart
it for
Attack,
Houses of
which
the
comes
Holy, but then they
much
put it on
later.
Physical Graffiti when they needed an extra song, to help fill out a double album. Same thing here. They needed another song. They pulled it out. It's a great song. I don't know why they didn't put it on
Great
Waiting for the Sun.
song.
It would have totally rocked on that album too. And Indian Summer is just so gorgeous. And one of the things I love about Indian Summer is that it's 2 minutes 33, but it somehow manages to incorporate almost the entire atmosphere of the end. Even though it's not as dark a song, but it just that little instrumental section is just so gorgeous. Just absolutely beautiful playing from all of them. They I think Land Ho, it's a little bit of are we doing a sea shanty here? You could
Mhm.
maybe complain about that a little bit, but the whole album is just fantastic. And some, I love how like that song Peace Frog, it's this kind of it's got wah wah guitar, it's a little bit funky, and then the lyrics are about protest in the street, blood in the streets that's going up to your ankles. And that's like he's ripping stuff from the headlines, but they're putting to this kind of jaunty thing, which, just a great contrast. I kind of love that stuff. One funny thing that I had forgotten and found out again when I was reading about this album Roadhouse Blues, the harp, the harmonica is played by John Sebastian.
Yeah, he's a great player, isn't he?
He's incredible. He's credited as G. Pugliese because he was under contract to another label and they wouldn't let him do anything else, I guess.
Yeah, super player.
Yeah,
Also,
so
Status Quo,
just
of
an
course,
absolutely
covered it.
incredible album. I also, once again, great packaging, just this super tough photos of them, beautifully printed, absolutely terrific. I mean, for any other band, it would be the number one album.
Great choice. How many stars, Jeremy? 4.5, did you say?
4.5, yeah.
Yep. Right. Well, my number four is Strange Days. I think it's a very good album. I've given it 3.5 stars. It's 8 months after the debut, which is again no time at all. In those days, that seemed to be the norm. Great opener. Again, clearly there's loads of bands with that song. It's a super song. Your Lost Little Girl, I love the bass playing on it by Doug Luban. It's just fantastic. It's got a lovely little feel to it, very jaunty. Love Me Two Times, great blues song, love it. Happy Girl, it sounds a bit like Siouxsie and the Banshees to me. You can obviously see, you can really hear it. Actually, I'm a big Siouxsie fan along with Peter there. Go and watch the show that we've done on it, folks. Two shows. But it's great. Moonlight Drive is the song apparently that the Doors formed to, which I thought was quite a nice story. My Eyes Have Seen You really sounds like the Jesus and Mary chain to me. There's a real big sort of influence there. I can just again hear it, you know.
Yeah, it gets
Um,
really big.
and I'm not a huge fan of theirs, but this song's good. Um, I can see it face my mind as decent. And when the music over is a good ending, I really, really like the song. Actually, it really works as an epic. It's a bit long, but it's very, very good. It does work. It's got all that psychedelic sort of progressive sort of feel to it. And I think it works very, very well. So yeah, 3.5 stars. I think it's a really, really, it's a very good album. Maybe it's even excellent, maybe even before, but it's certainly in that ballpark for me. So yeah, and it's a bit of a step up from the first album for me again. I know it's controversial. But I feel Peter's eyes here. I'm almost sort of blocking me. Blocking me
Shooting daggers.
out. Right. What have we got at number three, Peter?
I've got Strange Days. I mean, again, it's at this point it is a perfect album. Well, they all are from here. Opening with Strange Days with a weird little keyboard part, and yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely love that. It just sort of sets the scene for the whole album. That it is to me, it feels like their darkest album. I don't know if when you pick the lyrics apart, that's actually going to be true, but yeah, it and again, it is seamless. Everything in this one feels completely in the right place. Um, Your Lost Little Girl is one of my favorite songs of all time. Um, Horse Latitudes just sort of dropping in, before Moonlight Drive. It's quite a strange place to put it in. If they'd put Horse Latitudes in before My Eyes Have Seen You, that might made more sense, but wouldn't have worked as well. Sense isn't always, let's not always use logic. For God's sake, this is music. Um, People Are Strange, probably, was People Are Strange a single? It must have been.
It was for Echo and the Bunnymen, wasn't it?
It was, yes, yeah, yeah. And
Yes,
not
People Are Strange was the first single released.
okay. I mean, good
Massive.
idea because it sounds like a single.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Jesus and Mary covering "My Eyes Have Seen You." That would be so great. They did "Who Do You Love," which I know isn't a Doors song, but it's kind of like
Yeah.
it's in our consciousness.
Classic old
A
blues.
lot of people
Yeah.
for the Doors song.
Best of that song.
And when the music's over, that just kills me. That song, it's yeah. I even the title alone, that you're going in somewhere. Because for a band to end their second album with when the music's over. It's that's that's some heartbreak you're dropping there, even if you're not splitting up. It's still um, and yeah, I mean, God, I love this album so much. Yeah, and also like I always see the Doors as a bit of a sort of hash out band, like great to nod along to when you're stoned, but with Strange Days, like, no, this is an acid album. Definitely. But then again, when the more you listen, the more you get into the Doors, like, the whole fucking thing's acid. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, every track utterly iconic, 5 stars.
Good choice. Jeremy, where have you got it
Yeah,
in
now,
the
in
three?
the top three, it's a little like Pink Floyd, where you get these five
Hmm.
star albums and you just, it's almost your mood, or you try to figure out some way of putting
Yeah,
them in the
I'm still
order.
struggling to think of my top three. I've got them written down here, but you're right, and I could have picked any one here.
I mean, there's been a lot of shifting. I'm going with Strange Days as well. Second album, the fact that the second album is as good as the first is just insane when you consider how good the first album is. But they're a little more comfortable in the studio. You can hear a little more polish to things, and you can hear that Manzarek is like, oh, I can do stuff with keyboards. I don't have to just play what I was playing in the club. And every song on here is just incredible. My eyes have seen you. I can't see your face in my mind. Just weird stuff. Horse latitudes. Once you hear mute nostril agony, you just never forget it. You just gotta love it. I absolutely think it's fantastic. And yeah, Moonlight Drive, that image of Morrison and Manzarek on the beach. Hey man, what are you into? Oh, well, I'm writing some poems, some songs. This is what I got. And he starts speaking Moonlight Drive. Like next day they're like making music together. It's a great story, but it's a great song. That shuffle rhythm. I don't think Densmore gets enough credit for just the different approaches he brings to things. Obviously, we heard him do a little bossa nova on some albums. He can really do it all, and he can also smash the heck out of his drums on the way he uses the accents on when the music's over. Just so cool, so dramatic. And he was also really good at playing along with Krieger and Manzarek, like a jazz band where they're just getting into these grooves together rather than just keeping the rhythm going. He would follow them. And that came from all those hours, 2 shows a night, whatever they were doing. Just so, so great. Yeah, Unhappy Girl. I mean, Love Me Two Times. What a cool song, with the stop start stuff going on. Whew, it's incredible. And once again, another great iconic album cover shot here in New York. You can actually still walk by. They haven't knocked it down yet. You can still walk
Yeah.
by this location. I can't remember what it's called. Sniffin Court, I think.
Is it near the Empire State?
It's in Midtown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Great job. Everything superb, 5 stars.
So yeah, good choices. Well, you're right. Yeah, this at this point now, I could have picked any one of my three, and they all actually have changed at some point over the last couple of days. And so this one in particular is the one that really got me. And I thought, oh, wow, it's brilliant. So I've gone with Waiting for the Sun. Absolutely love this album. Um,
It's the forgotten album.
it's a great album. Again, this I've hit 5 star territory, folks. So a bit of a jump here. So I've gone 5 stars with this. I think it's a fantastic album. Hello, I Love You. Yes, it's clearly inspired by All Day and All of the Night by the Kinks, or it sounds like it anyway. But some great songs on it. I mean, Love Street about his ex-girl, well, his girlfriend at the time, Pamela Coulson. Great song, great song. Quite languid. Yeah, I like the keys on it. It's got a real sort of feel to it. Not Touch the Earth is possibly my favorite Doors song.
Hmm.
I think it's just magnificent. It's really catchy. It's a bit proggy, bit punky. I don't know what it is, but it's brilliant, whatever it is. Some of the lyrics refer to shooting at Kennedy as well. It's mad, but it is fantastic. Really, really great song. Summer's Almost Gone. Really swings. It's got a really good groove to it. I really like it. Really bluesy. I love this sort of little use of slide on it as well. Just adds to that texture. I've got Wintertime Love, great. Again, swings really well. What else have we got? The Unknown Soldier, excellent. Of course, very political. The irony of the sort of,
Hmm.
we had the Vietnam War going
Yeah,
on. So this song is probably the most hard hitting of anything that they did in some respects in terms of
yeah.
context and they're celebrating the end of the war, but of course it's referring back to the unknown soldier who's not celebrated, and you got all this sort of double messaging going on. So I thought that was really cool. Spanish
Yeah, when
Caravan,
you think,
brilliant.
Morrison's father was a high-ranking
Yeah,
military officer.
yeah.
So,
So you got all of that going on. And I think we, in this country, obviously undervalue it because we obviously weren't involved in Vietnam. Spanish Caravan, just brilliant. Robbie Krieger's magnificent on it. Now, again, I love the way he starts classical and it sort of goes into sort of a rockier feel. Morrison's baritone at this point is fully developed now, and so his voice is brilliant.
mm,
Superb. Love the groove on it. My Wild Love. It's almost like an old cotton field blues chant, isn't it? Works
yeah.
really, really well. Love it. We Could Be So Good Together has a bit of a Moon of Alabama feel to it, I've written. Um, yes, The River Knows. I've written, yeah, this will surprise you, Peter. Clearly influenced Depeche Mode is what I've written. And it's a superb song. I can hear it vocally, you know. And then 5 to 1 is basically their version of New Walking Blues, the old blues song. It's you can hear the rhythm in it, which will Peter is it Paul Butterfield will have made famous just a year or so earlier, but it's got that groove to it, say, but it's brilliant. It's a great song. So I've got that in at 5 stars. I've got it at number three, Waiting for the Sun. If they'd had the title track on it itself, which they'd recorded for it, that would have been just unbeatable in my opinion, because Waiting for the Sun is a magnificent song. But we'll come to that. Right, what have you got at number two, Peter?
I've got LA Woman. Again, it's a perfect album. Um, and it's definitely a companion piece, I think, to Morrison Hotel. That it's a similar. It's got that dirty blues feeling to it, but it's just that bit more sinister. So much of it is uncomfortable listening. But then it starts with like the Changeling and Love Her Madly, and quite poppy stuff. You know, um, but closing out the first side with LA Woman, which is one of the finest grooves of all time, just, yeah. LA Woman was, again, one of the first songs that really absolutely hooked me into them. Because I think, like, the first time I really sort of listened to them, I borrowed a best of cassette or something off a friend.
Mm.
So that was like when I got into Touch Me and LA Woman. Um, and then it's like, yeah, I went to the first album. Um, so yeah, and then I knew the song before seeing the Damned do it live. And yeah, that kind of blew my mind when they did it live, because that's the closest I'm ever going to get to hearing it live, or by somebody that I really, really liked at the time. And then, like, the second side for me, just starting with L'America and Hyacinth House, and it is much. That's where the sort of sinister stuff really comes in for me. It kind of starts with LA Woman, I think, but then it just sort of creeps in slowly. And, when you get to Crawling Kingsnake, it's like, yeah, this is crawling inside my fucking brain. And then, the Wasp, yeah, astonishing. Maybe possibly lost in the mix because I'm always waiting to get to Riders on the Storm. I maybe need to listen to. There are some tracks, like if they're put right next to your favorite track, they can get lost sometimes in the anticipation. So I should
Mhm.
make a playlist of all the songs Um, and that would be definitely be one of them on it. But it's it's still a great song. But then we get to Riders on the Storm and the rain and the hiss and just that sinister.
Mm.
And I can't remember what it was used in an ad over here for something that was quite creepy. The whole thing was shot like I think it might have been a tire.
Yeah, I think it was a car advert or something.
It was a because the camera was right by the wheel, wasn't it? And it was going down a rainy
Yeah.
road or a road in like a storm. And oh yeah, of course. Um, and that was really um, but yeah, I mean, what an absolute stonking album. Not 1 second pause, in the whole thing for me. Um, and yeah, you get the wide range of the pop of Love Her Madly through to the freaked out psych of Riders on the Storm. Chef's kiss, 5 stars. Oh, and the one other thing though, if they had done a studio version of Who Do You Love, God, it would have fitted well on this album.
Yes, it
Mm,
would.
mm.
Because they did do it live, of course, and do a great
Yeah,
version of it live.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
If
that would have
if
been
they
cool.
had put it on any album, it should have been that one.
I think they used to have something
Mhm.
called, was it like Blues Wednesdays or something like that? So they would just have to do blues all day long whilst recording the album. I'm pretty sure that was the case.
Okay.
So yeah. So Jeremy, what have you got at number two?
Number two, same. LA
Yeah.
Woman. It's 5 stars. And it's funny because I remember when I bought this, like I said, I was buying them chronologically in high school and a little bit earlier than that. And I remember, obviously loved the songs I heard on the radio, but took a while for the rest of it to come into focus. I have this distinct memory of having kind of a rough day, and I was taking the train home from work, and I missed my stop. So I got off at the next stop, and I'm sitting there waiting for the train coming back. And this is commuter rail, so you might be sitting there for 20 minutes. And I looked at my iPod and I pulled up LA Woman. I had it on there. And that's when it just hit me like a sledgehammer. You know, the mask is off in so many ways on this album. It's dark. I don't know if you mentioned Been Down So Long. I mean,
Great.
that is just rock bottom. Warden, Warden, Warden. Won't you,
Mm.
your lock and key. And oh man, Morrison had been through some, I was older than he was at that point. I had been through some shit in my life. I lost a child. My son died. And, it gives you different perspectives on life after that. And I think a lot of times when people are like a little mellow on this album, I'll be like, that's just because you haven't lived through the shit to understand what this album really means. It's just so intense in many ways. But and then Love Her Madly, they could still put a freaking AM radio pop hit out of the depth of Morrison's depression and drinking. And he was, I mean, look at him on the cover. He's just a grim soldier, marching in the footsteps of the guys ahead of him. Oh man, it's so good. And I love the fact that Paul Rothchild, who was their whip cracking producer for so many years, I think it was maybe Riders on the Storm when he heard that, he was like, "This is cocktail music. I'm out." Like he couldn't see the vision of what they were doing, and that song, in a way, is miles ahead of what anybody else is doing. It's just so ahead of its time in so many ways, and brilliant for Ray Manzarek to pick up, well, he didn't pick it up, it's heavy, the Rhodes piano, just that sound. Oh my God, the tinkling sound. He plays it perfectly. Everything about this album, yeah, it's a really intense album. That whole line about just the sense of rock bottom on some of the songs is really, it's the blues. Even the songs that aren't the blues, it's the blues. And yeah, absolutely love it. I'd really love to get an original pressing with the translucent cover. I have in the CD box set, they actually replicate that with the translucent cover, and you pull the sleeve out and it's got the electric Christ on the back of it.
Yeah.
It's very cool. But I haven't come across one that I can afford one day. But I just bought this new for, $3.99 at the big record store. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's a great album, 5 stars, my number two Doors album.
So my number two is the album that I first heard by the Doors, and that is LA Woman. It was my number one
We
until
agree.
a couple of days ago. It's just brilliant. It's the bluesiest album, I think, of all of the albums that they do. It kicks off with The Changeling, which is probably my favorite opening track that they do on any album. I just think it's fantastic. It's got a real funky groove to it. Really rocks. Absolutely love it. Love a madly great pop song. Down So Long, just magnificent. Being a blues singer as I am, it fits. I just love it. It's one of those songs I've always wanted to do. It's just so gravelly. It's got all that, It's just brilliant. Obviously, LA Woman is magnificent. The whole Mojo Rising thing and all that. I just love it. Side two is just as good, but darker, much darker. And as you see, Hyacinth House, the Wasp, the thing, Crawling King Snake, which is the old John Lee Hooker song, he gets a credit on it. Although theirs is miles better because they go off to different tangents where John Lee Hooker just stays on the one chord, And then, of course, Riders on the Storm, that sort of jazz, sort of feel thing at the end there as well is just magnificent. It is brilliant. And again, what I find with a few of their albums, you can't really just dip in and play the odd track. It's the whole album, I think. Definitely the case with this one in particular. And I like Jim overweight with a beard. I think it works. So I'm putting that out there. Much better than the leather trouser look for me. So it works. I'm sure my wife would say otherwise, of course. It works really well. So yeah, it's a great album. Obviously, it's a 5 star album. It's a top draw album. But again, just magnificent. And what's really sad is what would they have done next? That's obviously the question that we'll never answer. But it's just like,
Yeah.
what could have been? I'm sure I'm sure it wouldn't have been whatever came after
Would not have
the
been
band.
full circle.
Certainly wouldn't have been full circle. Good God. So what have we got at number one then, Peter?
I have got the Doors. Contrary to your opinion.
I'm going to get hate mail now. Go on.
This isn't just, my favorite Doors album. This is one of the greatest albums ever committed to vinyl, in my humble opinion. Opening with Break On Through to the Other Side, the absolute driving fucking riff through that. It just, you get it. I get it, like Through to the Other Side. It just really, really blows my mind, that song. And again, it's one that I can listen to over and over and over and over. Soul Kitchen, I absolutely love that song. And the version by X, has anyone heard the X cover version? It's quite incredible.
I don't like X.
Oh, see, I absolutely love X. So Man's
She
Red
sings way off key. I'm sorry. It's just.
I love that.
Hurts my ears.
So discordant.
But it was cool that they got Manzarek to produce the album.
Yes, yeah, and I remember hearing that on like Miami Vice TV show. Who that? That was the first time I heard X. Anyway,
interesting.
So yeah, I love that. The Crystal Ship, just perfect. 20th Century Fox. It's fucking sexy. It's a sexy song, And
oh yeah.
In fact, I get the whole of this album is pretty sexy, really. It is. You can see the leather trousers and the thrusting of the groin in this across this whole album, because you get to Light My Fire, which is one of the sexiest songs ever recorded. Maybe not the Shirley Bassey version.
The who version?
Shirley Bassey did Light My Fire.
A lot of people covered that song.
It's not good. Yeah,
Al Green did.
Yeah, but Al Green did a killer version of it.
Great version, didn't he?
And Jose Feliciano.
Yes, yeah, and just really no. And but what I like about the fact it Light My Fire is that despite the consistent assassination attempts, it has survived. Many people have taken a pot shot at it, and yeah, it stands. Like whereas something which I've mentioned many times before, "Love Will Tear Us Apart" by Joy Division hasn't. It fell under the weight of ghastly cover versions. Whereas when "Light My Fire" kicks in, it's like, yeah, let's get drunk and make out.
I think it's also very hard because of that cover, because the keyboards are so difficult to replicate. I think the only other band who got that similar keyboard sound are like the Stranglers, who I love, by the way.
Mm.
But there's not many other bands have really got that tone, have they? That Manzarek
Well, that's
had.
what's so great about the
Yeah.
Al Green versions, that he doesn't even try to
Yes.
make it sound like the
No.
Doors. He's just
No.
like, oh, this is a hot song.
But I don't think anyone has ever sounded like Manzarek.
No.
No.
I think if you hear the keyboards, hear him play, you know who it is. And
Yeah,
even
that's weird
me,
because you could go buy that instrument, but you still wouldn't sound like him.
I bet if two people sat down and played the same notes, or one person and him, you'd still know who it was.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
notes, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes there's just magic. And talking of which, there's Backdoor Man, which, dirty.
Little girls.
Again, it's and then I Looked at You as well is pretty, you know, I can understand that at the time they were causing a furore. There's I imagine some Christians were not happy, and yeah, I mean, right through End of the Night, Take It As It Comes, just again, just so beautiful. But then, of course, we get to the end, and this is where Sid, I am sorry, you are so wrong. The end is one of the greatest songs ever committed to vinyl, and I love the whole Oedipus thing. I really love that. It just, and also it just so creepy. I just really absolutely love it. The sound, everything about it. And I love cover versions of it as well. Nico's cover version.
Mm.
Nico's cover version
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah.
Like so great,
Yeah.
And I think as well, like I was kind of young when I got this. I think I was about 16 or so. And so sort of getting in, hearing something like that, it just changed so much. It really did. And so, yeah, it is so perfect. It's so close to my heart. I absolutely adore it. And I really want to give it more than 5 stars, but I can't. If I could, I would. But if not,
We would have had to downgrade the other ones to give this one extra.
and I wasn't about
Nobody
to
wants
do
to do
that.
that.
So I'll do it by putting them in order. It's a 5 star. It's
Right.
a full
Yep.
5.
So, Jeremy, that leaves you.
Yep. Same. Number one. I hesitated because I was like, well, you don't want to say their first album was their best album, but maybe it is. And like I said, those three albums, Strange Days, LA Woman, and the first album, they're all equal in my mind. It's just what an achievement to put that out as your first album. And it's still got that energy of the live performances that where they workshopped all these songs. When you think about like the end of Break On Through, it's just and Densmore, he used to play a small kit, so he'd have to hit it really hard, and it gives it that great sound. I used to when I first got I used to crank it up because I wanted to hear that little thing at the beginning, the little bossa nova, that's almost buried in the mix. You crank that up and then the song starts, like turn it down again. Soul Kitchen. I mean, the whole album is just absolutely fantastic. The Crystal Ship, Backdoor Man, how cool, Alabama Song and Backdoor Man, these were songs for grown-ups. You know what I'm saying? And these were not songs for that the Monkees would play. So, I just love that they're bringing that in, bringing those influences in right from the start. I Looked at You, perfect dark pop song. And how many dark pop songs had we had at that point? Because, it's catchy, but it's dark. Take it as it comes, same thing. And they end, Sid, have you seen Apocalypse Now?
Oh, yes.
Because for a lot of people, that was their discovery of the song, The End. I'd had the album for a little bit before that came out, but it was right around the same time, 79, right? So I probably bought the album in 78. And I was like, oh, oh, wow, but it's so perfect in that movie that I think it gave people a new look at what the Doors were doing sonically and texturally, creating this mood, this atmosphere. Nobody else was doing that at the time. And the fact that they cooked that up, on the Sunset Strip and the whiskey or whatever clubs they were playing in, amazing. The Oedipus stuff, I mean, it's good enough that Iggy Pop ripped it off on The Idiot.
Yeah, it just doesn't, I'm afraid it just doesn't work for me, but there we have it. It's all
But
right, your turn.
yeah, I just think it's just a great album, one of the great debuts. Let's give it to them. Let's just say, they knocked it out of the park on the first try. What a classic album. 5 stars.
Well, folks, just before I do mine, Peter and I did do a greatest albums debut show as well. I think we've picked 20 each, didn't we? We ended up with like about 35 different choices, which is unusual. Peter did
Hmm.
pick the Doors. Obviously, I didn't. So it's we've got quite a wide range on it as well. So go check that show out because I love doing that one.
I don't think I
Uh,
Yeah.
watched that.
so my number one it was well, it's a one that I've just sort of went back to again. I haven't heard this for years, and it's Morrison Hotel, which I really really love. I think it's a great album, and it does go with LA Woman as a sort of paired album. It's slightly less bluesy, I think, in my opinion, but it's just got something about it. And again, it could have, any day it could have been LA Woman, or it could have been Waiting for the Sun, or it could have been this for me. It's great. It starts off with Roadhouse Blues, which Status Quo ended up nicking almost immediately when they heard it the first time played. And then they ended up doing their own version of it, which went on for about 15 minutes at each gig, which is brilliant. But it's a fabulous song. Waiting for the Sun is just brilliant. I absolutely love it and cannot understand how it didn't make the original album. Uh, Everything about it's brilliant. The groove, the psychedelic feel, the waiting chant. It's a perfect song. It's brilliant. You Make Me Real, great song. Blues rock, yes, full of sexual innuendos, but good. Peace Frog. Now then, I want to say a little bit about this one. This is a song that clearly influenced the Manchester scene by an absolute
Hmm.
mile. So I was playing
Hmm.
it to my wife the other day, and I says, "Who does this remind you of?" And she goes, "Oh, it sounds like the Inspiral Carpets." And I said, "It does, doesn't it?" So I said, "You can clearly hear
That's a
them and
good
the
call.
Stone Roses and all of those bands are clearly influenced
Yep.
by Peace Frog. It's so obvious. Although the lyrics are very dark, of course, but so were some of theirs, to be fair.
Hmm.
Witnessing the dead bodies of Native Americans and stuff, it's very dark. But it's a fantastic tune with a funky up-tempo groove with really dark lyrics. I love stuff like that where there's a sort of juxtaposition at times. Blue Sunday, he croons really well. At this point, his voice is excellent. I think it's developed quite a bit since the first album. He's got a beautiful baritone. Um, it's just lovely. It's Ship of Fools, brilliant, really catchy. It really builds the tension in it is terrific. I just think it's a fantastic song. Land Ho, yes, it sounds like a sea shanty, but it's just good. Yes, it's a bit throwaway, but it works. And then the Spy or Spy in the House of Love, as it originally was, is perfect song. It really is a
Hmm.
great song.
So cool.
It's magnificent. One of my favorite Doors songs, I have to say. Queen of the Highway, almost like a driving song I've written here. Tells a story about a young couple, and then it throws in this sort of jerky rhythm in the middle, and then the sort of dark lyrics as well towards the end. It's
Hmm.
excellent, really sort of good. Indian Summer, I've just written it's just a fine song, beautifully done. And I love Maggie McGill, and I know it's unpopular with some people, which I don't understand.
I think it's pretty great.
Again, I love it. Bluesy groove. And as I say, it could be any one of the three, but I picked this one today just because I really love the album. It's really hit me. I thought, oh, isn't this great? I mean, easily could have been waiting for this tone. I could have flipped all three of them around. So I've really enjoyed doing this. It's been lovely, and there are certainly three albums I'll go back to on a regular basis and listen to, and bits of Soft Parade. unfortunately, it's one of those albums that could have been, I think, Soft Parade, isn't it? But there we have it. But a great collection of albums, I have to say.
Yeah.
Terrific
And
back
it's
catalogue,
it's
really
so
influential.
interesting, when you think about how little the three guys, and I don't want to disparage anyone, but how little they accomplished after this. I think
Yeah. Yeah, it makes
Morrison was a
Morrison look even better,
catalyst.
doesn't it? Which, yeah,
He
it's
was, I
probably fair.
mean, Manzarek did some, concept albums, pretty tough to listen to. And one thing I have that's kind of a weird 12-inch that Krieger and Densmore did a 12-inch of reggae covers. It's actually pretty good.
Wow.
It's a kind of cool thing to have if you can find it. I don't think it's on streaming.
Wow.
For
That's
some reason,
weird.
I think it was maybe when Bob Marley died,
Right.
they
As
were
a
really
tribute.
broken up about it. So they did a little tribute to him. They called it something like the Krieger Densmore Band, and that was something. But I just think, and that's when you got to give him a pass on those terrible albums because
Yeah.
when you have that momentum and that kind of
Yeah.
artistic
Yeah.
cohesiveness, even when they're falling apart on the Soft Parade,
Yeah.
that's your career. Let's face
Yeah.
it. That you're
Oh,
done, but you're only 30 years old or whatever.
I always quote John Peel when I talk about the Doors because he talked about, he said there were only two bands that he ever had on his show that were clearly not influenced by the Doors and the blues boom. And he basically said it was the Smiths and Roxy Music. He said they were the only two bands he
True.
felt were not influenced by the Doors or the sort of bluesy bands, which I
Now
think
I want to hear Brian Ferry to touch me, though.
which is good. Yeah. Well, he would have done when he had his voice. That
Yeah,
would have been
on his first,
that would have been an interesting one. Yeah, in
when
the
he
early
was doing all
70s.
those cover songs on his
Yeah,
first couple
Yes.
would
songs.
have been very good in the early 70s, actually. He could have really done a cracking version, actually. On that note, we're going to stop there, folks. Send in
Yes.
your lists. Please try not to sort of destroy me too much with your comments. Please be kind. So until the next time, obviously remember, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, send in your lists. So from Peter, Jeremy, and myself, take care, folks. Look after yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye now.